The quiet nights of ancient Egypt. The night comes slowly to the land along the Nile, not as a sudden change, but as a gentle fading of light, as if the day itself is quietly folding away, leaving behind a calm and steady stillness that settles over the earth with soft patience. The warmth of the sun lingers for a while, resting in the walls of homes made from mud and straw, resting in the stones that line narrow paths, and resting in the soft sand that stretches beyond the green edges of the river, holding on to the memory of the day before slowly letting it go. The sky begins its quiet transformation, shifting from pale gold to a deeper shade of amber, then to a soft and endless blue that stretches wider and wider, as if the world itself is opening into something calm and spacious, something that asks nothing and offers only stillness. Along the banks of the Nile, the water continues its slow and steady movement, never rushing, never stopping, carrying with it the quiet rhythm of life that has flowed here for longer than memory can hold, reflecting the changing sky in soft, broken patterns that shimmer and fade with each small movement. Tall reeds stand near the edge of the river, bending slightly as a light evening breeze passes through them, creating a soft whispering sound that blends gently with the quiet lap of water against the shore, a sound so calm and steady that it feels like it has always been there and always will be. In the distance, small villages begin to grow quieter as the day draws to a close, with people returning slowly to their homes, their steps unhurried, their voices low and soft, as if the coming night has already begun to shape the way they move and speak. Inside one of these homes, a small oil lamp is lit, its flame flickering for a moment before settling into a steady glow that casts warm light across the room, touching the rough walls, the simple tools, and the woven mats that rest on the floor. A woman moves quietly as she prepares the evening meal, her hands working with calm familiarity, grinding grain into flour, mixing it with water, shaping it into simple bread, her movements slow and steady, guided not by thought but by repetition, by the quiet knowledge of something done the same way many times before. The smell of baking bread begins to fill the air, warm and soft, wrapping gently around the small space, mixing with the faint scent of clay and ash, creating a feeling of comfort that settles into the evening like a quiet presence. Outside, the last sounds of the day continue to fade, with distant footsteps growing softer and less frequent, and the occasional murmur of voices drifting briefly through the air before disappearing into the deepening calm. Children who once ran freely under the bright sun now sit more quietly, their energy slowly fading, their movements softer, their voices lower, as they are guided inside, where the gentle light of the lamp waits to welcome them into rest. The sky above continues to darken, and one by one the first stars begin to appear, faint at first but steady, small points of light that hold their place in the vastness above, quietly marking the passage of time in a way that feels both distant and deeply familiar. A man sits just outside his home, his back resting against the wall, his body still after a long day of work along the river and in the fields, his hands resting loosely in his lap as he looks out toward the horizon, watching as the last light slowly disappears. He does not hurry to move, and there is nothing left that asks him to, as the day has already given what it could, and now the night offers only rest, only stillness, only the quiet space between one day and the next. Nearby, another small lamp is adjusted, its flame shifting slightly before becoming calm again, casting moving shadows along the walls that stretch and soften, then settle into a gentle stillness that feels almost like sleep. From inside a nearby home, a soft voice can be heard, low and steady, telling a simple story, not with excitement or urgency, but with a calm rhythm that flows like the river itself, carrying each word gently forward, allowing it to rest before the next one comes. The listener lies still, eyes slowly closing, breathing becoming softer and more even, as the sound of the voice blends with the quiet of the night, becoming part of the stillness rather than something separate from it. Beyond the village, the desert begins to cool, releasing the heat it held through the long day, allowing a gentle chill to settle across the open land, where dunes stretch endlessly under the darkening sky, their shapes soft and unmoving. There is a silence in the desert that feels deep and complete, not empty, but full in a quiet way, as if the land itself is resting, holding its breath in a calm and endless pause. Back along the Nile, the water continues its movement, its surface now darker, reflecting the growing number of stars above, breaking them into small shifting pieces that drift slowly with the current. The reeds continue their soft whisper, and the air grows cooler, wrapping gently around everything, touching the walls of homes, the surface of the water, the quiet forms of people who are now settling into rest. Inside the homes, the lamps burn lower, their light softer now, their glow more gentle, as if they too are becoming tired, slowly giving way to the deeper darkness of the night. Bodies lie down on woven mats, finding familiar places of rest, with simple coverings pulled lightly over them, the warmth of the day still faintly present in the air, making the night feel calm and safe. Breathing slows. Movements stop. The quiet deepens. And above it all, the sky continues to fill with stars, spreading wider and brighter, forming patterns that have been watched for generations, patterns that guide, that mark time, that offer a sense of quiet order to the vastness of the night. The land of ancient Egypt begins to settle fully into stillness, with only the soft movement of the Nile, the faint whisper of reeds, and the distant, occasional sound of a night bird breaking the silence for just a moment before it returns again. Everything feels held in place. Everything feels calm. And as the night continues to deepen, the world along the Nile drifts gently into rest, preparing quietly for the slow and certain arrival of another day. The stillness deepens, not in a sudden way, but in slow and gentle layers, as if the night itself is softly pressing down over the land, encouraging everything to rest a little more fully, a little more quietly, with each passing moment. The lamps inside the homes continue to dim, their small flames growing lower as the oil is slowly used, the light becoming softer and softer until it barely reaches the corners of the room, leaving much of the space in a calm and comforting darkness. In one home, the final movements of the evening come to an end as a hand carefully adjusts a woven mat, smoothing it gently before resting, and then there is nothing more to be done, no more tasks waiting, no more voices speaking, only the quiet presence of sleep slowly taking hold. Outside, the air feels cooler now, moving lightly across the land, touching the surface of the Nile, slipping through the reeds, and passing softly along the walls of the village, carrying with it the faint scent of water, earth, and distant sand. The river continues its steady journey, unchanged by the coming of night, its movement calm and constant, as if it is unaware of time in the way people understand it, flowing as it always has, guided by something deeper and more patient. A small wooden boat, tied loosely near the bank, shifts ever so slightly with the movement of the water, its rope pulling gently, then relaxing again, creating a soft, rhythmic sound that blends into the quiet of the night without disturbing it. The stars above grow clearer as the sky deepens, their light steady and cool, spreading across the vast darkness in patterns that feel both distant and familiar, patterns that have been watched and remembered by countless generations who lived and rested under the same sky. Somewhere within the village, a child stirs briefly in sleep, turning gently on a woven mat, adjusting to the quiet coolness of the night, then settling again, breathing slow and even, returning to a peaceful stillness without waking. The sound of the night is very soft now, almost too soft to notice, made up of small and quiet things that exist without drawing attention. The faint brushing of reeds, the distant movement of water, the gentle shifting of air. Far beyond the village, deeper into the desert, the silence becomes even more complete, stretching across the open land where no walls or homes stand, where the sand holds its shape under the starlight, untouched and still. The dunes appear almost smooth in the darkness, their edges softened by the absence of light, forming quiet shapes that rise and fall slowly across the land, like waves that have come to rest. The temperature continues to drop, and the warmth of the day becomes only a faint memory, leaving behind a coolness that feels clean and steady, settling into the ground, into the air, and into the stillness of everything that rests upon it. Back near the river, the village seems almost as if it has disappeared into the night, its forms blending into the darkness, with only the faintest glow from a few remaining lamps marking where life continues quietly inside. A man who had been sitting outside earlier has now moved inside, his place against the wall empty, the space still holding a trace of his presence, now returned to silence like everything else. The doorways are still, the paths are empty, the voices have faded completely. Even the animals rest, their bodies curled or stretched in quiet positions, breathing slowly, undisturbed by anything around them, as if the night has gently placed a hand over all living things, asking them to be still. Above, the stars continue their slow movement, almost impossible to notice unless watched for a long time, shifting little by little across the sky, marking the passage of hours in a way that feels calm and unhurried. There is no sense of urgency in this movement, no sense of rushing, only a quiet continuation. Near the edge of the river, a small ripple forms as something beneath the surface moves briefly, then disappears again, leaving the water smooth once more, as if nothing had happened at all. The reeds respond with a soft rustle, then return to stillness. The moment passes without leaving a trace. Time moves in this same quiet way, passing without disturbance, without sound, without asking to be noticed, carrying the night forward with a gentle and steady rhythm. Inside the homes, sleep has settled fully now, deep and calm, with no movement except the slow rise and fall of breathing, the body resting in a way that feels complete and undisturbed. Dreams come quietly, without sharp edges or sudden changes, blending gently into the stillness, becoming part of the soft flow of the night rather than something separate from it. The lamps, now nearly empty, flicker one last time before going out, leaving the rooms in full darkness, a darkness that feels soft rather than empty, calm rather than unknown. Outside, the sky remains wide and open, filled with stars that seem endless, their light traveling across great distances to reach the quiet land below, touching the river, the desert, and the resting village with a faint and steady glow. The Nile continues its steady journey, always moving, its quiet sound one of the few that remains, a gentle reminder that even in stillness there is always something continuing, something flowing forward without pause. The night has now fully taken its place over the land of ancient Egypt, holding everything in a deep and gentle calm, where nothing is asked, nothing is hurried, and nothing is disturbed. And in this calm, in this wide and quiet stillness, the world rests completely, as if held in a moment that does not need to change. The hours pass in this way, slowly and quietly, with no clear beginning and no clear end, only a soft and steady continuation of night. And as this stillness carries on, something subtle begins to shift, not yet visible, not yet fully present, but gently forming at the edge of the world, where darkness will, in time, begin to soften once again.
The night remains deep and wide, holding the land in a quiet stillness that feels almost unchanging. Yet within that stillness, something soft and nearly unnoticeable begins to move, like a distant thought forming at the edge of awareness. The stars continue their slow journey across the sky, their patterns shifting so gently that the movement can only be felt over time, as if the heavens themselves are breathing in a calm and steady rhythm, unseen yet constant. The air is at its coolest now, settled fully into the earth, resting against the walls of homes, the surface of the river, and the silent stretches of desert beyond, creating a feeling that is both clear and deeply peaceful. In the village, everything remains still. The homes, shaped from earth and time, hold their quiet forms without change, their walls now cool to the touch, their interiors wrapped in complete darkness, where sleep has deepened into its most silent and restful state. No voices rise, no footsteps pass. Even the smallest movements seem to pause, as if the world has reached a moment where nothing more is needed, where everything simply exists in calm balance. Near the river's edge, the water continues its soft and endless motion, its surface darker now, reflecting fewer stars as a faint and distant change begins far along the horizon, too subtle to be seen, but present all the same. A light breeze moves across the land, gentler than before, carrying with it a soft freshness that was not there earlier, as if the air itself is slowly preparing for something new, something that has not yet arrived but is certain to come. The reeds respond with the softest movement, barely more than a whisper, then fall still again, returning to their quiet watch along the water. Far out in the desert, the silence remains complete, stretching across the wide expanse of sand where no paths are marked and no structures rise, only the soft curves of dunes resting under the fading stars. The shapes of the land are smooth and endless, their presence calm and unchanging, as if they have been waiting in this same position for longer than memory can reach. Yet even here, in this deep and open stillness, the night is not entirely without change. The sky, though still dark, begins to lose a small part of its depth, a slight softening that cannot yet be seen clearly, but can be felt in the quiet shift of the air, in the way the darkness no longer feels as heavy as it once did.
Back in the village, a subtle movement begins inside one of the homes. It is not a full waking, not yet, only a small shift, a quiet turning, as someone resting begins to move gently within sleep, responding to something unseen, something that signals the slow approach of morning. The body settles again, but the stillness has changed just slightly, becoming lighter, less deep, as if the hold of the night is beginning, very slowly, to loosen. The Nile continues its steady flow, unchanged in its purpose, yet reflecting this quiet transition in its own subtle way, as the surface begins to carry a faint difference, a soft blending of darkness that hints at the coming light. A bird, somewhere not far from the water, stirs quietly, adjusting its position, its small movement breaking the silence for only a brief moment before stillness returns once more. The sound is soft, almost imagined, yet it remains, marking a gentle shift in the rhythm of the night. The stars above remain bright, but their presence begins to feel different, less fixed, as if they are slowly preparing to fade, to step back and make space for the light that will follow. Time continues in this quiet and steady way, without urgency, without any sharp change, only a gradual and gentle movement from one state into another. The air carries a new softness now, a faint sense of renewal that touches the edges of everything, the walls, the ground, the river, and the resting forms of those who sleep. Inside the homes, breathing remains slow and even, but lighter now, less deeply settled, as if the body itself is beginning to sense the approaching day, even before the mind fully wakes. A faint hint of color begins to form far along the horizon, so distant and so soft that it does not yet break the darkness, but instead rests beneath it, like a quiet promise waiting to unfold. The desert, vast and still, holds this change in silence, its surface unchanged, yet touched by the same subtle shift that moves across the entire land. Nothing rushes, nothing rises suddenly. Everything changes in the same way the night arrived, slowly, gently, without disturbance. Back along the Nile, the water reflects this early transition, its surface no longer as dark as before, carrying a faint softness that moves with the current, spreading quietly along its path. The reeds stand in calm stillness once more, their earlier whispers now gone, replaced by a deeper quiet that feels like the final breath of the night before it begins to release its hold. In the village, one of the lamps, long extinguished, sits in silence, its warmth gone, its presence now only a small and simple form, resting in the darkness, waiting for the next evening when it will again bring light. Everything feels paused between two moments, not fully night, not yet day, a space in between where time feels gentle and unmeasured. And in this soft and quiet transition, the land of ancient Egypt begins, very slowly, to move toward morning, carried forward by the same steady rhythm that has guided it through countless nights before.
The change comes so softly that it is almost impossible to notice at first, as the deep darkness of the night begins to loosen its hold, not all at once, but in a slow and gentle way, like a quiet breath being released across the land. Far along the horizon, a faint pale glow begins to gather, spreading carefully beneath the fading stars, its presence subtle and calm, as if it does not wish to disturb the stillness that has settled so deeply over everything. The sky, once dark and endless, now carries the first hint of color, a soft gray blue that slowly widens, blending gently into the remaining darkness above, creating a quiet balance between night and the coming day. The stars begin to fade, not disappearing suddenly, but growing softer, their light less sharp, as if they are stepping back with quiet understanding, allowing the new light to take its place without resistance. The air shifts again, carrying a slight warmth that was not there before, though the coolness of the night still lingers, resting lightly on the ground, on the river, and along the walls of the silent homes. Along the Nile, the water reflects this gentle change, its surface no longer dark, but touched with faint shades of gray and silver, moving slowly with the current, carrying the first signs of morning across its wide and steady path. The reeds at the river's edge stand quietly, their forms now more visible, their shapes slowly returning as the light grows, though they remain still, as if holding on to the last moments of night. In the village, the stillness remains, but it has changed. It is no longer the deep and complete stillness of midnight, but something lighter, something that feels as though it is waiting, as though it is gently preparing for movement. Inside one of the homes, a small shift breaks the quiet. A person turns slowly, adjusting their position, their breathing changing just slightly, becoming less deep, more aware, though their eyes remain closed. The woven mat beneath them rustles softly, then becomes still again. Another moment passes, then stillness returns. But it is not the same stillness as before. It is a stillness that holds the beginning of waking. Outside, a faint sound rises from near the river, the soft call of a bird greeting the first light, not loud, not sudden, but clear in the quiet air, a single note that lingers briefly before fading. It is followed by silence once more. Then, after a short while, another call, and another, each one spaced gently apart, as if the morning itself is arriving in small and careful steps. The sky continues to brighten, the pale glow along the horizon growing wider, touching more of the land, revealing shapes that were hidden in darkness, the outlines of homes, the edges of paths, the calm surface of the water. The desert, too, begins to emerge from shadow, its dunes slowly becoming visible, their soft curves catching the faint light, though their colors remain muted, waiting for the sun to rise higher. The temperature remains cool, but the air now carries a sense of quiet renewal, something fresh and steady that moves gently across the land, touching everything without urgency. In the village, another small movement begins. A hand shifts, a shoulder rises slightly. Eyes begin to open, not fully, but enough to sense the light that has begun to enter the world. There is no rush to rise, no sudden movement, only a slow and natural return from rest. A person sits up quietly, pausing for a moment, allowing the body to adjust, feeling the cool air, noticing the soft light that now fills the doorway. The room remains simple and calm, its shapes now visible in gentle tones, the lamp resting quietly where it was left, the walls holding their steady form. Outside, the birds become more active, their calls still soft but more frequent now, creating a light pattern of sound that blends with the quiet flow of the river. The Nile reflects the growing light, its surface now touched with pale gold, though the sun itself has not yet risen above the horizon. The reeds begin to move again as the breeze returns, slightly stronger than before, though still gentle, carrying with it the scent of water and earth, a familiar and grounding presence. In another home, someone rises and steps softly across the floor, careful not to disturb others who still rest, their movements slow and quiet, guided by habit and the calm rhythm of the early morning. A doorway is opened. The outside air enters gently, cool, fresh, still. The person steps out, pausing for a moment, looking toward the horizon where the light continues to grow, their body still, their breath slow, taking in the quiet beginning of the day. Around them, the village begins to wake in the same gentle way, with small movements, soft sounds, and unhurried steps, each one blending into the calm rhythm that has always guided life along the Nile. The night has not fully disappeared. It lingers in the shadows, in the quiet corners, in the soft coolness that still rests on the ground. But the day is beginning, slowly, gently, without interruption. And as the light continues to spread, touching the river, the homes, and the open land beyond, the world of ancient Egypt moves softly from rest into waking, carried forward by the same steady and peaceful rhythm that has shaped it for countless days before.
The light continues to grow along the horizon, spreading slowly and evenly until at last the first edge of the sun begins to appear, a soft and steady glow rising from the line where earth and sky meet, bringing with it a gentle warmth that touches the land without haste. It does not arrive suddenly. It lifts itself slowly, as if aware of the quiet it is entering, as if it understands the need to move with care, allowing the world to wake in its own time. The pale gold of the early sun stretches across the Nile, laying a soft path of light upon the water, broken gently by the movement of the current, creating a quiet shimmer that drifts and reforms without end. The reeds along the river catch this light, their edges glowing faintly, their forms now clear and defined, no longer shadows, but part of the waking world, standing still for a moment before the breeze returns to guide their slow movement. In the village, the light reaches the walls of the homes, warming them gradually, bringing out the soft tones of earth and clay, revealing textures that were hidden in the night, the small marks and lines shaped by hands long ago. More people begin to wake, not all at once, not with urgency, each one rising in their own quiet time, moving slowly from sleep into the calm awareness of morning. A man steps outside his home, his feet touching the cool ground, his body still heavy with rest, yet steady, his breath deep as he looks toward the rising sun, watching its slow ascent without speaking. He does not hurry. There is no need. The day will come whether he moves quickly or slowly, and so he allows himself a moment of stillness, standing in the soft light as it spreads across the land. Nearby, another doorway opens, then another, each one marking the gentle return of life to the village, though the sounds remain low, the movements quiet, as if the calm of the night has not yet fully released its hold. From within the homes, small tasks begin again. A hand reaches for a clay jar. Water is poured carefully into a bowl. Grain is gathered and prepared. Each movement is familiar, repeated across many mornings, guided by memory rather than thought, forming a rhythm that is steady and unbroken. The smell of fresh bread begins to rise once more, faint at first, then slowly filling the air, mixing with the scent of the river and the soft warmth of the early sun, creating a sense of comfort that settles gently into the morning. Children begin to wake more fully now, their movements slower than they were the day before, their voices soft as they speak, not yet filled with the energy that will come later, but calm, still held by the quiet of the early hour. One child steps outside, pausing in the doorway, blinking softly in the light, looking out toward the river where the surface now reflects the full glow of the rising sun, bright but not harsh, steady and warm. The birds are more active now, their calls forming a gentle pattern that spreads across the air, not loud, not overwhelming, but present, adding a light and natural sound to the growing day. The Nile continues its endless flow, unchanged in its purpose, carrying water along its long path,
reflecting the sky above, now brighter and clearer with each passing moment. A small boat tied near the edge moves gently with the current, its rope pulling softly, then easing again, creating a quiet rhythm that blends into the morning without drawing attention. In the distance, beyond the village, the desert begins to take color once more, its pale sands warming under the light, though still soft and muted, not yet touched by the full heat of the day. The air remains cool, though it carries the promise of warmth, a gradual shift that will come as the sun continues to rise, touching everything with steady care. Back in the village, a woman kneels near a small stone surface, grinding grain with slow and even movements, the sound soft and rhythmic, a quiet echo of work that has been done in the same way for generations. Nearby, another person carries water from the river, moving carefully along the familiar path, the container balanced steadily, the steps measured and calm, without rush or strain. The village is now awake, but it does not feel busy. It does not feel loud. It moves in a steady and peaceful rhythm, where each action flows into the next without interruption, without urgency, as if guided by something deeper than time. The sun rises higher, its light spreading further, reaching into every corner, touching the tops of the homes, the paths, the fields beyond, and the wide open sky above. Shadows begin to form, soft and long at first, stretching across the ground, slowly shifting as the light continues to grow. The last traces of night fade completely now, leaving only the memory of its quiet stillness, carried gently into the day. And yet that calm remains. It lingers in the slow movements, in the quiet voices, in the steady rhythm of life that continues without change. The world has awakened, but it has not rushed. It has simply moved forward, just as it always does, carried by the same gentle flow that guides the Nile, the sky, and the people who live along its banks. And as the morning settles into its full light, the day begins to take shape, slowly and steadily, preparing for the long hours ahead, while still holding on to the quiet peace that came with the night. The light of the morning continues to grow stronger, though it never feels harsh, only steady and patient, as it spreads across the land and settles into every space, touching the river, the homes, and the open fields beyond the village. The air begins to warm slowly, though the coolness of the early dawn still lingers in shaded places, resting along the walls and beneath the narrow overhangs where the sun has not yet reached. Along the Nile, the water carries the brightness of the sky more clearly now, reflecting pale blue and soft gold, shifting gently with the current, its movement calm and unbroken as it continues its long journey. Near the river's edge, a few people have gathered, not in a crowded way, but with quiet purpose, each one focused on simple tasks that begin the day, their movements steady, their voices low, blending into the soft sounds of water and breeze. One person kneels to fill a clay vessel, dipping it carefully into the river, lifting it slowly so the water does not spill, the surface rippling outward in small circles that fade quickly, leaving the calm flow undisturbed. Another stands nearby, rinsing hands in the cool water, pausing for a moment afterward, letting the drops fall slowly back into the river, watching them disappear without a trace. There is no urgency here. Each action follows the next in a natural and familiar way, guided by repetition, by the quiet understanding of what must be done, and the knowledge that it will be done again tomorrow and the day after that. From the village, the soft sound of grinding grain continues, steady and rhythmic, like a quiet pulse that carries through the air, joining with the distant calls of birds and the gentle movement of reeds. In the fields beyond, the first workers begin to arrive, walking along narrow paths that wind through the land, their steps measured and even, their bodies moving with the calm strength that comes from long habit. The earth beneath their feet is firm but soft, holding the memory of water that has nourished it, allowing small plants to grow in ordered rows, their green leaves catching the morning light. A man pauses at the edge of a field, looking out across the land before stepping forward, his gaze steady, his thoughts quiet, as he begins the work that has shaped his days for many seasons. He bends slightly, touching the soil, feeling its texture, its moisture, understanding without words what it needs, what it will give, and what must be done to guide its growth. Nearby, another person carries a simple tool, its surface worn smooth from use, its purpose unchanged, as it moves through the soil in slow, careful motions, turning the earth gently, not forcing it, only guiding it. The sun continues to rise, its warmth spreading further, reaching the open fields, the pathways, and the far edges of the desert, where the sand begins to glow softly under its light. Yet even as the warmth increases, the pace of life remains calm. No one rushes, no voices rise above a quiet tone. Everything moves with the same steady rhythm that began at dawn. Back in the village, the morning meal is shared in simple ways, with bread broken into pieces, passed from hand to hand, eaten slowly, without haste, as the day begins to unfold. A child sits nearby, watching quietly, learning not through instruction, but through presence, through the repeated patterns that shape each day in the same gentle way. The homes, now fully lit by the sun, reveal their textures more clearly, the small marks left by hands, the smoothness of worn surfaces, the quiet signs of life that exist without drawing attention. A doorway remains open, allowing the air to pass through, carrying with it the faint scent of the river, the fields, and the warming earth, creating a sense of connection between inside and outside, between rest and work. Along the Nile, a small boat begins to move, pushed gently away from the shore, its movement slow and controlled, guided by a steady hand that knows the river well. The water parts quietly around it, then closes again, leaving only soft ripples that fade into the larger flow. The reeds sway as the boat passes, then return to stillness, continuing their quiet watch along the edge of the river. In the distance, the desert remains calm and open, its surface now brighter under the sun, though still quiet, unchanged, holding its vast stillness beyond the life of the river. The sky above is clear, wide, and steady, stretching without end, holding the sun in its slow path upward, marking the passing of time in a way that feels natural and unforced. The work in the fields continues, each movement following the last, forming a pattern that does not need to be spoken, a rhythm that is understood through repetition and quiet attention. Hands move through the soil, tools press and lift, steps shift and settle, all of it steady, all of it calm. Back in the village, more people step outside, joining the morning in their own way, each one becoming part of the larger flow of the day. No single moment stands apart. Everything connects, everything continues. And as the sun rises higher, bringing more warmth and light to the land, the morning settles fully into its rhythm, a quiet and steady movement of life along the Nile, where each action, no matter how small, becomes part of something larger, something that flows as gently and as endlessly as the river itself. The sun rises higher into the sky, not quickly, but with the same steady patience that has guided the morning from its first light, lifting itself slowly above the river and the fields, spreading warmth more fully across the land. The coolness of early dawn has now softened, giving way to a gentle and growing warmth that settles into the earth, into the walls of the homes, and into the bodies of those moving through their daily work. In the fields, the rhythm continues without interruption, each person working in quiet focus, their movements steady and familiar, guided by long habit rather than thought, forming a pattern that repeats day after day in the same calm and measured way. The soil is turned carefully, never rushed, always guided with a sense of understanding that comes from years of tending the land, knowing when to press, when to lift, and when to pause. A man straightens his back for a moment, not out of strain, but simply to rest, his gaze lifting toward the horizon where the desert stretches wide and still, its pale surface glowing under the sun, unchanged and silent. He takes a slow breath, then returns to his work. Nearby, another person adjusts the flow of water through a narrow channel that leads from the Nile, guiding it gently into the field, allowing it to move slowly across the soil, soaking into the ground without force. The water glides quietly, filling the small paths that have been shaped to receive it, reflecting the sunlight in soft, shifting lines that move with the current. There is a quiet care in this process. Nothing is wasted, nothing is hurried. Everything is done with a steady attention that feels almost like listening. Along the river, the activity remains calm but continuous, with a few boats now moving slowly across the water, their paths unbroken, their motion smooth and even as they follow the natural flow. A figure stands within one of the boats, guiding it with a long pole, pressing gently against the riverbed, then lifting and placing it again, each movement measured and quiet. The water responds with soft ripples, spreading outward and fading without sound. On the banks, others continue their morning tasks, filling vessels, washing hands, or simply standing for a moment, looking out across the wide surface of the Nile, as if taking in its steady presence before returning to their work. Back in the village, the homes remain open to the day, their interiors filled with light, though the deeper corners still hold a soft shade that offers a quiet place to rest from the growing warmth. Inside one home, a woman sits near a low surface, shaping dough with slow and careful hands, her movements steady, her attention calm, as she prepares food that will be shared later in the day. The sound of her work is soft and rhythmic, blending with the distant sounds from the fields and the river, creating a quiet harmony that carries gently through the air. Nearby, a child watches, not speaking, only observing, learning through stillness, through presence, through the simple act of being near. Outside, the paths between the homes are more active now, though still unhurried, as people move from one place to another, carrying small items, exchanging a few quiet words, then continuing on their way. No one lingers for long, but no one rushes either. The pace remains steady. The air grows warmer as the sun continues its slow climb, though a light breeze moves through the village, offering a gentle balance, passing through open doorways, brushing against the skin, carrying with it the familiar scent of river water and earth. The reeds along the Nile sway more noticeably now, their movements still soft but constant, responding to the shifting air, their quiet whisper returning as part of the growing day. The birds remain active, though their calls have become part of the background, no longer standing out, but blending into the steady rhythm of life that fills the space. In the fields, the work continues, with small pauses woven naturally into the movement, moments where hands rest briefly, where bodies straighten, where eyes lift toward the sky or the distant horizon, then return again to the task. Nothing feels forced, nothing feels heavy. It is a rhythm carried by time itself, a pattern shaped not by urgency, but by repetition and quiet understanding. The Nile flows on, unchanged, reflecting the bright sky above, its surface now more vivid, its movement still calm and unbroken as it continues along its endless path. A boat passes slowly near the bank, its shadow moving across the water, then drifting away, leaving the surface once again open and still. In the distance, the desert holds its silent presence, untouched by the movement of the village and fields, its vast stillness offering a quiet contrast to the gentle activity along the river. The sky remains wide and clear, the sun steady in its path, marking the passage of time without needing to be noticed. Back in the village, the morning has fully settled into its later hours, where the early softness has given way to a calm steadiness, where each person is now fully part of the day's rhythm. The quiet of the night feels distant now, yet not forgotten. It lingers beneath everything, in the calmness of movement, in the softness of voices, in the steady way each task is carried out. And as the late morning continues to unfold, the land of ancient Egypt moves forward in the same gentle and unbroken flow, where each moment connects to the next, where nothing is rushed, and where everything belongs to the quiet rhythm of life along the Nile.
The sun continues its steady climb, rising higher into the wide and open sky, its light now stronger, though still calm, spreading evenly across the land and settling into every space without urgency. The warmth deepens, not suddenly, but in a gradual and quiet way, touching the earth, the walls of the homes, and the surface of the Nile, where the water now reflects a brighter and more constant glow. In the fields, the work continues, though the pace begins to soften slightly, not from fatigue alone, but from an unspoken understanding of the day's rhythm, where effort and rest move together in a steady balance. Hands continue to move through the soil. Tools rise and fall in slow, practiced motions, and the narrow channels of water carry their gentle flow across the land, nourishing the plants that grow in careful rows. A man pauses again, this time a little longer, standing still as he looks across the field, his breath steady, his body calm, allowing a moment of stillness before returning to his work. Nearby, another person steps into the shallow edge of a water channel, letting the coolness touch their feet, standing quietly for a brief time before stepping back onto the warm earth. There is no sense of stopping, only a soft slowing. Along the Nile, the water continues its endless movement, though now it carries the brighter reflection of the sun, its surface shimmering gently, the light shifting and breaking with each small ripple. The boats move less frequently now, some resting near the banks, their motion minimal, tied in place as their owners turn their attention to other tasks or take a quiet moment of pause. The reeds continue their soft movement in the breeze, though the air feels warmer, thicker with the presence of the sun, even as it still carries the faint scent of water and growing plants. Back in the village, the activity remains calm, though it too begins to slow, as people move more deliberately, seeking shade where they can find it, stepping into the softer light near doorways or beneath simple coverings that offer relief from the growing warmth. Inside the homes, the air remains cooler, the thick walls holding back some of the heat, creating spaces where the body can rest more easily, where movement becomes slower, quieter. A woman sits near the entrance of her home, where the light meets the shade,
continuing her work with steady hands, though her movements are unhurried, her breath calm, her attention gentle. Nearby, a child rests quietly, sitting close to the wall, watching without speaking, feeling the warmth of the day while remaining still, as if understanding without being told that this is a time for calm. The sounds of the village grow softer, not because they have disappeared, but because they have settled into a lower rhythm, where each movement, each voice, each action carries less energy, less urgency. The birds, too, become quieter, their calls less frequent, their movements slower, as they rest in shaded places, waiting for the heat of the day to pass. The sky above remains clear and wide, holding the sun high, its light now steady and full, casting shorter shadows that rest close to the ground, shifting slowly as time continues forward. In the distance, the desert reflects the brightness of the day, its pale sands glowing under the sun, though its silence remains unchanged, holding its vast stillness beyond the life along the river. The contrast between the quiet desert and the gentle activity near the Nile remains, each steady in its own way, each part of the same larger rhythm that moves through the land. Back in the fields, some workers begin to step away from their tasks, not all at once, but one by one, moving toward shaded areas or toward the river, where the air feels cooler and the water offers a quiet sense of relief. A small group gathers near the edge of the Nile, sitting or standing in stillness, their bodies resting, their movements minimal, as they take a pause from the steady work of the morning. No one speaks loudly, no one moves quickly. The pause feels natural, expected, part of the flow rather than a break from it. The river continues to move beside them, its sound soft and constant, a quiet presence that fills the space without asking for attention. The breeze passes again, light and steady, brushing across the surface of the water, through the reeds and along the shaded ground where people rest. It carries with it a sense of calm that settles into the body, encouraging stillness, encouraging quiet. Back in the village, more people move into shaded areas, sitting near walls, beneath coverings, or just inside doorways, where the light softens and the air feels easier to breathe. The pace of the day slows further, not stopping, but easing into a quieter state, where effort gives way to rest, where movement becomes less frequent, and where stillness begins to return in a gentle and natural way. The sun holds its place high in the sky, marking the approach of midday, though nothing changes suddenly, nothing shifts in a way that feels sharp or sudden. Everything continues as it has all morning, slowly, steadily, calmly. And as this quiet moment deepens, as the warmth settles fully across the land and the rhythm of life softens into rest, the day reaches its most still and balanced point, where work and pause exist together in quiet harmony. The sun now rests high above the land, steady and unmoving to the eye, holding its place in the wide, clear sky, where no clouds pass and no shadows stretch far, only short and quiet shapes resting close to the ground. The warmth has fully arrived. It does not press harshly, but it surrounds everything, settling into the earth, into the walls, into the still air that moves only lightly through the village and along the river. This is the quiet center of the day, a time when movement slows to its gentlest pace. In the fields, most of the work has paused, with only a few remaining motions continuing here and there, small and unhurried, as if even the land itself has asked for a moment of rest. Tools lie still upon the ground, their surfaces warm from the sun, their purpose unchanged, waiting quietly for the later hours when they will again be lifted and used. The narrow channels of water continue to carry their soft flow through the soil, moving gently without interruption, doing their quiet work even as people rest nearby. Some sit at the edges of the fields, beneath what little shade can be found, their bodies relaxed, their hands resting loosely, their breathing slow and even as they pause without speaking. Others have returned closer to the village, finding cooler spaces near the river or within the shadow of their homes, where the heat feels softer, more distant. Along the Nile, the water reflects the brightness above, its surface glowing softly, though its movement remains unchanged, steady and calm as it passes through the heart of the land. A few people sit near the bank, their feet close to the water, some letting their hands rest just at the surface, feeling the gentle coolness that contrasts with the warmth of the air. No one rushes to move away. No one hurries to return to work. This moment is understood. It belongs to stillness. The reeds stand tall and quiet, their earlier motion now softened as the breeze has grown lighter, passing only occasionally, as if even the wind has slowed in the presence of the midday sun. The birds have mostly fallen silent, resting in shaded places, their energy quiet, their movements minimal, as they wait for the day to soften again. Back in the village, the homes hold a deeper calm, their interiors cool compared to the open spaces outside, offering a quiet shelter where the body can fully rest. Inside one home, a person lies on a woven mat, eyes closed, not fully asleep, but resting in a state between waking and dreaming, where thoughts drift slowly and without form. The light enters softly through the doorway, creating a gentle contrast between brightness and shade, forming still patterns that do not change. In another home, someone sits quietly, leaning against the wall, their gaze unfocused, their mind at ease, as if simply being present in the moment is enough. There is no need to speak, no need to move. The day has reached a place where everything feels held in balance. Outside, the paths are nearly empty, with only occasional footsteps passing slowly, each one unhurried, each one soft against the warm ground. The air carries a stillness that feels complete, where even the smallest sounds stand out briefly before fading again into quiet. A distant movement along the river creates a small ripple, then disappears. The reeds respond with the faintest rustle, then return to stillness. Nothing lingers, nothing disturbs. Time passes gently without marking itself in any clear way, flowing forward like the Nile itself, steady and continuous. The desert in the distance glows under the sun, its pale surface bright and open, yet unchanged in its silence, holding its vast calm beyond the life along the river. The sky remains wide and clear, its blue deep and endless, holding the sun at its highest point, where it will remain for a time before beginning its slow descent. Back near the fields, a few figures shift slightly, adjusting their position in the shade, taking a slow breath, opening their eyes briefly, then closing them again. There is no signal that marks the end of this stillness, no moment that breaks it, only a gradual and natural change that will come, just as the morning came, just as the night faded. For now, the land rests, fully, quietly, completely. The Nile continues its endless flow beside it, a gentle and constant presence that moves without pause, even in this moment of stillness. And in this calm center of the day, where everything slows and settles, the world of ancient Egypt holds itself in quiet balance, waiting patiently for the slow return of movement that will come with the passing of time. The stillness of midday does not end suddenly. It begins to loosen gently, as if the land itself is slowly exhaling, releasing the heavy quiet that has settled over everything, allowing movement to return in soft and unhurried steps. The sun begins its long, slow descent, though at this moment it still feels high, still bright, still holding the world in a steady glow that warms the earth and softens the edges of every shadow. But something subtle has changed. The air feels slightly lighter, the silence feels less complete, and the first signs of movement begin to return across the land. In the village, a few doors open again, not widely, not quickly, but with calm and gradual motion, as people begin to rise from rest and return to the rhythm of the day. Inside the homes, the coolness of shade is slowly replaced by the growing light that shifts through the doorways, marking the return of activity with a gentle, familiar presence. A person sits up from a resting mat, pausing for a moment before moving, allowing the body to adjust slowly, as if listening to the quiet transition between stillness and motion. No one rushes. There is no need. The afternoon arrives in its own time. Near the river, the first small movements return as well. A few people walk back toward the water, their steps unhurried, their presence calm, as they prepare to resume tasks that were paused during the height of the heat. The Nile continues its steady flow beside them, unchanged, reflecting the soft angle of the sun as it begins its gradual shift downward, casting a slightly different light across the surface of the water. The reeds respond to the returning breeze, their movement faint at first, then slowly more noticeable, as if they too are waking from a long shared stillness. A boat that had been resting near the bank is gently pushed back into motion, its rope loosened, its body shifting slightly before settling into the current, where it begins to move once more along the familiar path of the river. The sound of water against wood is soft and steady, blending into the natural rhythm of the afternoon. In the fields, movement begins again in scattered places, not all at once, not in a rush, but in a gradual return, as individuals rise from shade, stretch quietly, and step back into the work that continues to shape the land. Hands return to tools, feet return to paths worn by repeated movement. The soil, still warm from the sun, receives this return gently, as if nothing had been interrupted at all. There is a sense of continuity here, as if the pause of midday was not an interruption, but a natural breath within the larger rhythm of the day. Back in the village, small activities resume. Water is carried once more. Bread is prepared again. Simple tasks return in the same steady patterns as before, familiar and calm, woven into the fabric of everyday life. The sounds of the village begin to rise slightly, though never loudly, a soft murmur of voices, the quiet rhythm of movement, the faint sound of tools, water, and footsteps blending into a gentle background presence. The sky remains clear, though the sun now begins to shift slightly lower, its light stretching differently across the land, creating longer shapes that slowly move with time. The desert in the distance remains unchanged, still vast and silent, its brightness steady under the afternoon light, holding its quiet presence beyond the river's life. Along the Nile, the reflections grow more varied as the angle of light changes, shifting between gold and silver, soft blues and pale highlights, all moving gently with the current. The breeze returns more consistently now, no longer hesitant, but steady and calm, passing through reeds, across open paths and between homes, carrying with it a sense of renewal after the stillness of midday. People move with it, not against it. The rhythm of the afternoon is not fast, but it is alive again, carrying a quiet sense of purpose that returns without pressure or urgency. A man walks slowly along the riverbank, his gaze lowered toward the water, his steps even and unhurried, as if he is simply moving because the day has begun to ask for movement again. Nearby, a group gathers briefly in shade, speaking softly, their conversation light and calm, their presence relaxed as they share a moment before returning once more to their tasks. Nothing feels separate. Everything remains connected. The morning, the midday stillness, and now the returning afternoon all flow together like the Nile itself, forming a continuous rhythm that never truly breaks. And as the sun begins its slow descent toward the west, the land of ancient Egypt continues to move gently forward, not with urgency, but with the same steady calm that has shaped every hour of the day so far.
The afternoon slowly changes its tone, not through any sudden shift, but through a quiet softening of light. As the sun begins its gradual descent toward the far edge of the sky, where day will eventually meet evening once again. The brightness is still present, still warm, but it no longer sits overhead in the same steady weight. Instead, it begins to angle gently across the land, stretching shadows outward, drawing them longer across the earth as time moves forward in its calm and steady way. In the village, the rhythm of life continues, but it feels slightly slower now, as if the entire world is breathing at a more measured pace. People move through familiar paths, their steps unhurried, their movements balanced between activity and ease, carrying out tasks that feel natural at this hour of the day. The sound of the village is soft but present, a steady murmur of life, water being poured, tools being set down and lifted again, quiet voices passing between doorways, all of it blending into a gentle background of human presence that never overwhelms the calm of the land. Along the Nile, the river reflects the changing sky more clearly now, as the sun lowers enough to cast a warmer, deeper glow across its surface. The water carries this light in shifting patterns, breaking it apart and rejoining it again, always moving, always changing, yet always calm. A few boats continue their slow movement, though less frequently than earlier in the day, their paths smooth and familiar, guided by steady hands that know every curve of the river. On the banks, people pause more often now, standing still for longer moments, looking out across the water, as if allowing themselves to rest within the view before returning to motion. The reeds sway gently in the afternoon breeze, their movement now more visible as the light shifts behind them, creating soft silhouettes that rise and fall in a slow, natural rhythm. In the fields, the work continues with renewed presence, though it carries a different feeling than the morning. There is less initiation, more continuation, less beginning, more completion. Hands still move through soil, water still flows through channels, but everything feels closer to finishing than starting. A man pauses again, this time resting both hands on a tool planted lightly in the earth, looking across the field, where long shadows now stretch between rows of plants, marking the passage of time in quiet lines across the land. He does not speak. He simply stands for a moment, taking in the steady rhythm of the afternoon. Nearby, another worker adjusts a channel of water, guiding it with care as it moves more slowly now under the softer light, its surface reflecting the warm tones of late day. The desert beyond the fields begins to change more noticeably.
Its pale surface, once bright and almost flat under midday sun, now gains depth and shape as shadows form along its dunes, revealing gentle curves and quiet ridges that were hidden in earlier light. It remains silent, unmoving, but it feels more present now, more defined, as if the changing light has given it form again after the stillness of midday brightness. Back in the village, some people begin to prepare for the closing hours of work. Simple tasks are completed, tools are gathered and placed aside, water containers are filled for the return journey. Everything is done with the same calm attention that has shaped the entire day. No one rushes, but there is a sense of gentle completion beginning to form. Inside the homes, the light has shifted again, becoming softer and warmer, entering at lower angles through doorways and openings, creating long shapes across the floors that move slowly as the sun continues its descent. A woman sits near one of these shifting bands of light, resting quietly for a moment, her hands still, her breathing steady, as she watches the afternoon move toward evening. Outside, the breeze grows slightly cooler, carrying the first subtle hint that the heat of the day is beginning to ease. It passes through the village, through the fields, and along the river, touching everything with a light and calming presence. The birds begin to stir again, more active than during midday, but still gentle in their movement, as if preparing for the final part of the day's cycle. Their calls return in scattered patterns, soft and spaced, blending into the larger rhythm of the afternoon. The Nile continues its flow, now reflecting deeper golds and soft oranges as the sun lowers further, its surface alive with shifting light that moves endlessly with the current. Everything feels longer now, shadows, movements, breaths. Time itself seems to stretch gently, as if the day is slowing down in preparation for its quiet end. And as the sun continues its steady descent, the land of ancient Egypt moves with it, calmly, steadily, without resistance, carried forward by the same quiet rhythm that has shaped every hour from dawn until now.
The sun lowers further now, moving slowly toward the edge of the world, where light and earth seem to meet in a quiet and endless line that has always marked the return of evening in the same calm and steady way. The brightness of the day begins to soften again, not fading quickly, but easing down in gentle layers, as if the sky itself is slowly closing a soft curtain over the land. Across the Nile, the water reflects this change with quiet grace, the surface now holding deeper tones of gold and amber, shifting with each movement of the current, as if carrying the memory of the sun within it. The wind grows slightly cooler, no longer holding the warmth of midday, but instead bringing a soft freshness that moves through the village, across the fields and along the riverbanks, touching everything with a sense of approaching rest. In the fields, the final movements of the day begin to take shape. Work slows naturally, not because it is forced to stop, but because the rhythm of the day itself is guiding it toward completion. Hands move less frequently now. Tools are lifted for the last time and gently set aside. Water channels are left to flow quietly on their own, their work for the day complete. A man stands still for a long moment, looking across the field, where long evening shadows now stretch between rows of plants, marking the passage of time in soft and silent lines. He does not speak. There is nothing to say. The day has done what it came to do. Nearby, others begin to walk slowly back toward the village, their steps unhurried, their bodies relaxed, carrying the quiet ease that comes after steady work. Along the river, the movement becomes softer as well.
Boats drift back toward the shore or remain still against the banks, their motion now minimal as the current continues beneath them with its constant and patient flow. The reeds along the edge sway gently in the evening breeze, their movement more delicate now, as if responding to the quieter tone of the world around them. The sounds of the river remain steady, but they feel softer in this hour, blending with the growing calm of the approaching night. In the village, people begin to gather again. Some return from the fields, others step out from their homes. Movements are slow and familiar, as if guided by memory rather than thought, forming a gentle pattern of return. Inside the homes, light begins to shift once more. The bright openness of the afternoon gives way to a warmer, more enclosed glow as lamps are prepared and simple fires are tended in quiet corners. A woman kneels near a small flame, gently adjusting it, watching as it steadies, casting a soft and golden light across the interior of the home. The smell of evening preparation begins to rise again. Bread, grain, warm earth, smoke from small fires, all of it blending into the familiar scent of home as the day moves toward its close. Outside, the sky continues to change. The sun now rests low, close to the horizon, its shape softened by distance and light, spreading long rays across the land that stretch over river, field, and desert alike. The colors deepen. Gold becomes richer, orange becomes softer, and faint traces of rose begin to appear along the edges of the sky. The desert beyond the Nile holds this light in stillness, its vast open form now filled with long shadows and quiet contrast, no longer bright and flat, but layered and calm under the changing sky. The village becomes more settled now as people move into evening routines. Water is carried one last time, food is prepared for the night. Doors remain open to let in the cooling air, which now feels gentle and comforting after the warmth of the day. Children move more quietly, their energy softening as the evening approaches, their voices lower, their steps slower, as they are guided toward rest or simple calm inside the homes. The Nile continues its endless movement, reflecting the sky in deeper and quieter tones, as if holding the entire day within its surface before releasing it into night. The breeze passes again, steady and cool now, carrying the sense that the long hours of light are nearly complete. And as the sun edges closer to the horizon, the world of ancient Egypt begins to settle into the calm threshold between day and night, where movement slows, voices soften, and everything prepares gently for the arrival of evening.
The sun now reaches the very edge of the horizon, where the land and sky seem to meet in a quiet line of fading light, and its movement slows even further, as if it is pausing for a final moment before disappearing into the calm of evening. The sky becomes rich with color. Soft gold deepens into amber. Amber fades into warm orange, and above it all, a gentle wash of rose and fading blue begins to spread, blending together without sharp edges, as if the entire sky is slowly dissolving into night. Across the Nile, the reflection of this change moves like a living surface, rippling gently with the current, carrying the last strong light of the day in broken patterns that drift and reform without end. The river feels especially calm in this moment, as if it too is slowing with the setting sun, holding the final brightness before releasing it into darkness. In the village, movement becomes even more unhurried. People return fully from the fields and riverbanks now, walking slowly along familiar paths, their
their bodies relaxed, their thoughts quiet, as the long day begins to close behind them. There is no sense of urgency, only completion, only return. Inside the homes, the first lamps are lit, one by one. Small flames appear in different doorways and rooms, each one flickering gently at first before settling into a steady, warm glow that begins to shape the evening atmosphere. The light is soft, golden, comforting. It does not push back the darkness, but rather rests gently within it, creating small pockets of warmth that move softly through the growing night. A woman moves carefully through a room, placing a lamp in its usual position, its light falling across the walls and floor in quiet patterns that feel familiar and steady. Nearby, a man sits near the doorway, watching the last light of the sun outside, his posture relaxed, his presence still, as if he is taking in the final breath of the day before it fully fades. Outside, the sky continues to deepen. The sun is now only a partial glow, its shape no longer sharp, softened by distance and haze, resting at the horizon as if reluctant to leave. The colors around it grow richer and quieter at the same time. The village is now filled with the gentle return of evening sounds, soft voices, slow footsteps, the quiet movement of daily closing routines. The smell of evening food begins to drift through open doorways again, warm and steady, mixing with the cool air that now flows more freely through the village. The breeze has shifted slightly. It is cooler now, softer. It carries the calm of approaching night across the land, passing through reeds, over fields, and along the river in a steady and peaceful rhythm. The Nile reflects the final glow of sunset, its surface now darker in places, brighter in others, as if holding fragments of both day and night at the same time. Boats along the shore rest quietly, their motion almost gone, gently shifting only with the river's constant current, as if they too are settling into rest. The desert beyond the river becomes more silent than ever, its shapes fading into long shadows, its vastness now turning soft and indistinct as the last light drains from its surface. In the village, lamps now glow in many homes, creating a scattered pattern of light across the gathering darkness, each flame a small and steady presence within the growing evening. The transition feels complete. Day is no longer dominant. Night is beginning to take its place. But it does so slowly, gently, without force. And as the sun finally touches the horizon and begins to disappear, the land of ancient Egypt enters the quiet threshold of night, where the world is held in balance between fading light and rising darkness, and everything prepares for the soft calm that will soon follow.
The last edge of the sun finally slips below the horizon, not with suddenness, but with a slow and quiet disappearance, as if it is gently lowering itself out of sight, leaving behind only the memory of its warmth across the sky. The light that remains is soft now, fading in gentle layers, until the world is filled with a calm twilight that holds both day and night at the same time, neither fully present, neither fully gone. Then, slowly, night begins to take its place once again. The sky deepens from warm color into cooler tones, soft blues becoming darker, stretching higher and wider, until they begin to resemble the familiar stillness of evening over ancient Egypt. One by one, the first stars return. They do not appear all at once. They emerge quietly, patiently, as if stepping back into a space they have always known, spreading across the sky in soft, steady points of light. Along the Nile, the water now reflects these stars more clearly as the last sunlight disappears completely, leaving behind a surface that feels deeper, quieter,
and more reflective in its darkness. The river continues its movement, unchanged, carrying both the memory of the day and the calm of night within its flow. In the village, lamps now glow in nearly every home. The scattered lights form a warm pattern across the darkness, small and steady, like gentle anchors holding the presence of life within the night. Inside the homes, the atmosphere has fully shifted. The brightness of the day is gone, replaced entirely by soft golden lamplight that flickers gently across walls, floors, and faces, creating a feeling of warmth and quiet enclosure. People move more slowly now. Their tasks are simple: closing doors, preparing resting places, sharing quiet meals, speaking in low and gentle voices that carry only a short distance before dissolving into the calm air. A woman sits near a small lamp, her hands resting now, her work for the day complete, her posture relaxed as she listens to the soft sounds of the evening around her. Nearby, a child lies on a woven mat, already drifting toward sleep, their breathing slow and even, their body still and calm in the gentle glow of the lamp. Outside, the village is quiet but alive in its own soft way, not busy, not empty, but settled. The breeze continues to move lightly through the space between homes, passing through open doorways, touching the warm light inside, and then moving on toward the river and fields beyond. Along the Nile, the darkness is now deeper now, but not heavy. It feels open, wide, calm. The water carries the reflections of scattered stars and faint lamplight from the village, creating a soft pattern that moves endlessly with the current, never fixed, never still. A few boats remain near the shore, gently shifting in place, their presence quiet and steady, as if resting alongside the river rather than moving upon it. The reeds along the edge are nearly still now, their motion reduced to the faintest whisper as the night settles more fully across the land. In the distance, the desert is once again a vast field of shadow, its forms barely visible, yet still present, holding its silent watch beyond the river's life. The sky above is now fully night, deep, wide, endless, filled with countless stars that seem to hold their places with calm certainty, forming patterns that have remained unchanged across generations of quiet observation. In the village, the lamps continue to burn steadily, their light soft but constant, creating a sense of comfort within the darkness. The sounds of the day have now completely faded. No more work, no more movement of fields, only the gentle presence of evening life continuing in slow, peaceful rhythm. Inside the homes, bodies settle into rest once more, not abruptly, but gradually, as if the night itself is guiding each person gently toward sleep. The air is cooler now, carrying the calm that always follows sunset, wrapping the land in a soft and steady stillness. And as the night fully returns to its place over ancient Egypt, everything once again becomes quiet in the way it always does, where the river flows, the stars watch, and the village rests beneath a sky that never feels empty, only endlessly calm. The night settles more deeply now, not with change that can be easily seen, but with a quiet thickening of stillness, as if the world itself is gently sinking into a softer and more complete rest. The stars remain above, steady and distant, their light unchanged, yet everything beneath them feels quieter now, as though the land has moved further away from the rush of time and into something slower, something more gentle and unbroken. Along the Nile, the water continues its endless flow, but the sound of it feels softer in this hour, as if even the river has lowered its voice, carrying its movement through the darkness with quiet patience. The reflections on the surface are faint now, only occasional traces of starlight and distant glow from the village lamps reaching the water before fading into the current. In the village, the lamps burn lower than before, their flames small and steady, no longer bright enough to reach far into the rooms, but enough to hold a warm and familiar glow close to where it is needed. Inside the homes, people rest more fully now. Bodies are still. Breathing is slow and even. The day is no longer present in thought or movement. Only sleep remains. A woven mat, a simple wall, a soft covering, these become the entire world for those who have drifted into rest. There is no urgency anywhere, no sound that demands attention, only the steady rhythm of night continuing without interruption. Outside, the paths of the village are empty. The places that were filled with movement during the day are now quiet shapes in the darkness, familiar even when unseen, held gently in memory rather than sight. The breeze moves through them softly, passing between homes, across open spaces, and down toward the river, carrying a coolness that deepens the calm of the night. Near the water, a single boat shifts slightly with the current, its movement slow and barely noticeable, as if it is resting while still being carried forward by the river's endless flow. The reeds along the edge are almost completely still now, their earlier whispers reduced to silence, their forms blending into the dark outline of the riverbank. The desert beyond the Nile is fully quiet again, its vast shape dissolving into shadow, stretching endlessly into the distance without sound or motion, as it always does in the deepest part of night. The sky remains wide and full above it all. Stars spread across it in countless small points of light, unchanged and steady, watching without movement, holding their place in a silence that feels both distant and close at the same time. In the village, the last traces of activity have faded completely. Lamps still glow faintly in a few homes, but even those feel softer now, their light no longer active in the way of evening, but resting gently within the darkness like small, steady hearts. Inside one home, a lamp flickers once, then steadies again, casting a slow-moving shadow across the wall that drifts and settles without meaning, part of the quiet rhythm of night. A child turns slightly in sleep, then becomes still again, their breathing unchanged, their rest uninterrupted. Elsewhere, a door that was left slightly open allows a faint line of cool air to move through the room, passing gently across sleeping forms before fading into the deeper quiet inside. Time feels slower now, not measured, not marked, only present as a continuous, quiet flow that carries everything forward without effort. The Nile continues this same motion, a steady presence through the darkness, always moving, always calm, never breaking the stillness that surrounds it. Even sound itself feels softened, as if it has been wrapped in layers of quiet that make it distant and gentle. And so the night deepens further, reaching its most silent and peaceful point, where the land of ancient Egypt rests completely beneath the wide sky, held in a calm that feels endless, where nothing is needed and nothing is asked, only the soft continuation of night, flowing like the river itself into stillness.
The night now reaches its deepest point, where everything feels suspended in a quiet balance that does not change quickly, but holds itself gently in place, as if the world has settled into the softest part of its breathing. The sky above remains vast and dark, yet never empty, filled with countless stars that continue their slow, distant presence, unchanged and steady,
like small fixed thoughts scattered across an endless calm. There is no movement in them that can be seen, only the feeling of their presence, constant and quiet, watching over the land without interruption. Along the Nile, the water flows as it always does, but in this hour it feels almost like a whisper, a motion so steady and smooth that it seems to belong more to silence than to sound. The surface is dark now, broken only occasionally by faint reflections of starlight that appear and disappear with the gentle ripples of the current. In the village, the lamps are now very low. Some have gone out completely, leaving only darkness within those homes. Others still remain, but their flames are small, resting in their final oil, flickering gently, as if they too are becoming part of the night's slow and steady quiet. Inside the homes where darkness has fully settled, sleep is deep and complete. Bodies are still. Breathing is soft and even. The day has long disappeared from thought, leaving only rest, only silence, only the gentle weight of night. There is a calm here that feels complete, not empty, but whole. Outside, the village lies still beneath the sky. Paths that were once filled with movement are now only faint shapes, known more by memory than by sight, their presence unchanged but quiet, resting under the soft cover of darkness. The breeze moves occasionally, but even it feels lighter now, passing through the space between homes and along the river with minimal sound, as if careful not to disturb anything. Near the Nile, a small shift in the water causes a soft ripple to spread outward, then fade again into stillness, leaving the surface smooth and dark once more. The reeds along the bank remain almost entirely motionless, their forms blending into the edge of the river, becoming part of the same quiet landscape that holds everything in place. Far beyond the river, the desert stretches endlessly, its silence deeper than before, its shape now almost completely absorbed into shadow, holding its vast stillness without change. The sky above continues to feel wide and open, though there is a subtle shift beginning now, so faint it is not yet visible, but present in the way the darkness feels slightly less heavy than before. A sense of something distant begins to gather at the edge of perception. Not light yet, not color, only a quiet easing, as if the night is preparing very slowly to loosen its hold. In the village, one lamp that had been nearly extinguished flickers once more, briefly brightening, then settling again into a softer glow, casting a small circle of warmth into the surrounding darkness. No one stirs. The movement remains only in the flame itself, in the slow breath of oil and wick, in the gentle rhythm of something continuing without attention. The Nile continues its steady flow, unchanged, carrying the night forward in the same way it carried the day, without pause, without effort, always moving, always calm. Time here feels less like something that passes and more like something that rests, stretched gently across the land in a continuous and quiet presence. And in this deepest part of the night, where everything is still and the world feels held in soft suspension, there is only the river, the stars, the sleeping village, and the endless calm that surrounds them all.
The night remains, but it no longer feels quite as heavy as before, as if something distant and quiet has begun to shift at the very edge of the sky, too subtle to name, too gentle to fully notice at first. The darkness is still present, deep and wide across the land, yet there is a softness within it now, a faint easing that moves through the air like a slow and quiet breath.
Above the Nile, the stars continue to shine, but even their presence feels slightly different, not dimmer, but somehow less distant, as if the sky itself is preparing to change without disturbing the stillness below. The river flows on, unchanged in its movement, but the surface now holds the faintest suggestion of variation in tone, where the darkness is not as uniform as it once was, blending slowly into subtle shades that come and go with the current. In the village, everything remains at rest. Homes are still. Doors are closed or resting slightly open. Lamps that remain lit are now at their smallest, their flames low and steady, barely moving except for the gentle flicker of oil and wick as they continue their quiet work through the night. Inside, sleep continues in its deepest form. Breathing is even, bodies are fully still. There is no awareness of time, only the soft continuation of rest that stretches without interruption. Outside, the paths of the village remain empty, but the air feels slightly different now, carrying the faintest sense of change, like a distant memory of light that has not yet arrived, but is already beginning to form. The breeze returns lightly, passing over the river, through the reeds, and across the open spaces between homes, cooler than before, but also softer, as if it is moving through a world that is slowly preparing to awaken again. The reeds along the Nile respond with the smallest movement, barely visible, as if acknowledging something subtle passing through the land. The desert remains silent, but its darkness now holds faint variation, the first suggestion of depth returning to its surface as the night begins to lose a fraction of its uniform stillness. The sky above shows no clear light yet, but there is a change in feeling, a quiet lifting at the horizon that cannot be seen directly, only sensed, like the earliest awareness of something far away beginning to approach. Time continues to pass without sound or disruption. It does not rush, it does not shift suddenly. It simply moves, as it always has, through stillness. In one home near the edge of the village, a sleeping figure shifts slightly, not waking, but adjusting within sleep, as if responding to something distant and gentle, something that exists beyond awareness. The movement fades quickly, and stillness returns. Elsewhere, a lamp that had nearly gone out flickers faintly once more, its light barely touching the walls, yet holding on just long enough to remain present in the deep quiet of the night. The Nile continues its endless flow beside everything, carrying this moment forward in its calm and steady rhythm, as it always does, as it always will. And in this quiet threshold between night and the first unseen beginning of dawn, the world remains still, yet no longer entirely unchanged, resting in a space where the night has not ended, but has begun, ever so gently, to loosen its hold.
The change is still quiet, but now it becomes easier to sense, as if the night is no longer resting in perfect stillness, but instead slowly loosening its grip across the land, allowing something softer to begin forming beneath it. The darkness is still present over the Nile and the village, still wide and complete, but it no longer feels as absolute as before, as faint layers of difference begin to appear within it, subtle and gradual, like the earliest breath of a new day that has not yet fully arrived. The stars remain in place above, steady and familiar, but their light now feels slightly gentler, as though the sky is holding them in a space that is slowly preparing for change. Along the river, the water continues its endless flow, but its surface begins to reflect a faint shift in tone, where the blackness of night is no longer uniform, and the first pale suggestion of something lighter begins to blend into the horizon's edge. In the village, the silence remains deep,
but it is no longer as still as before. There is a softness within it now, a quiet tension between rest and return, where the world has not yet awakened, but is no longer fully asleep. Inside the homes, sleep continues, but even in sleep there is movement now, a slight turning, a gentle adjustment of breath, a sense deep within rest that the night is approaching its end. No one wakes yet, but something within the rhythm of sleep begins to shift. Outside, the air feels different again, still cool, still calm, but lighter, as if it is carrying the faintest trace of something distant and approaching, something that cannot yet be seen, but is beginning to shape the feeling of the world. The reeds along the Nile respond with barely noticeable movement, their forms outlined more clearly now against the subtle change in sky, though everything remains quiet and undisturbed. The desert, vast and silent, begins to lose the deepest uniformity of its darkness, as faint gradients return to its surface, revealing soft contours that were hidden during the deepest hours of night. Nothing moves quickly, nothing changes sharply. Everything unfolds in the same gentle rhythm that has carried the night from its deepest point toward this quiet turning. In one home, a lamp that has been burning low for hours flickers again, briefly brighter, as if responding to the shifting balance of air and time, before settling back into its soft glow. No one stirs. The flame alone marks the passage. The Nile continues its steady presence, reflecting now not only darkness, but the faintest suggestion of something lighter beyond it, as if the river itself is beginning to sense what is coming before the land fully does. And still the sky remains mostly night, but at the very edge of the horizon, almost imperceptible at first, there is a faint thinning of darkness, a soft suggestion that the sky is no longer holding itself in complete shadow. It is not light yet. It is only the preparation for light, a quiet easing, a gentle opening, a moment suspended between what has been and what is about to come. And so the world of ancient Egypt remains still, held in this delicate transition, where night has not yet ended, but dawn has already begun to arrive in the softest and most patient way. The first light of dawn does not arrive suddenly, but rather unfolds in a slow and quiet spreading, as if the sky itself is gently opening after a long and peaceful rest, allowing a soft brightness to return to the edge of the world. At the horizon, the darkness begins to thin more clearly now, not disappearing, but loosening, revealing a faint and delicate gradient where deep night transitions into the earliest pale tones of morning. The sky above remains mostly dark, still holding the memory of night, but beneath it, along the far edge of the land, a subtle band of lighter color begins to form, almost gray at first, then slowly leaning toward the faintest blue. The stars are still visible, but they feel more distant now, as if the sky is gently guiding them backward, making space for the light that is beginning to return. Along the Nile, the water reflects this change in a soft and shifting way, where the surface no longer holds only darkness, but now carries faint traces of pale reflection, moving with the current in gentle, unhurried patterns. The river remains calm, unchanged in its motion, but it feels as though it is becoming more visible with each passing moment, as if the world is slowly returning to itself through light. In the village, the stillness begins to shift, not breaking, not ending, but softening. Inside the homes, sleep begins to lighten. People remain resting,
but their bodies respond to the subtle change in the world outside, with small movements, gentle turns, and the quiet adjustment of breath that signals the edge of waking. No one rises yet, but the presence of morning begins to reach even into sleep. Outside, the air carries a new feeling, cooler than midday warmth, yet no longer as deep and still as the night, holding instead a balanced calm that belongs only to early dawn. The reeds along the river stand more clearly now, their outlines emerging as the light grows, revealing shapes that were once hidden in darkness, though they remain still, as if waiting for the day to fully arrive before moving again. The desert beyond the Nile begins to reappear as well, its vast surface slowly returning from shadow, where faint textures and soft lines of dunes begin to form again under the growing light. Everything is still quiet, but everything is becoming visible. In one home, a sleeping figure turns slightly, the movement slow and natural, followed by a deeper breath, as if the body is preparing itself for the return of the day without conscious thought. Nearby, a lamp that had nearly gone out during the night flickers again, briefly brighter, then steadies, its small flame now competing softly with the growing light outside. The village remains mostly silent, but it is no longer fully asleep. A sense of gentle return moves through it, subtle and unspoken, as if the land and its people are awakening together in the same slow rhythm. Along the riverbank, the first faint movements begin to appear, not yet full activity, but small signs of life returning, an opening door, a shift of shadow, a quiet step that breaks the stillness without disturbing it. The sky continues to brighten at the horizon, the pale band of light growing wider, more defined, stretching gently upward into the darkness above, where night still holds its place for a little longer. And so the world stands between two states once again, not fully night, not yet day, but something in between, soft and suspended, where everything is beginning to return without urgency, and where the quiet transition of dawn moves across the Nile like a slow and peaceful breath.
The horizon begins to glow more strongly now, no longer just a faint suggestion of light, but a steady and growing brightness that spreads slowly upward, as if the sky itself is unfolding in calm layers after a long and quiet night. The darkness does not disappear all at once. It retreats gently, softly, step by step, until the first true edge of the sun begins to show itself, just above the far line of land, where the Nile Valley meets the open sky. It rises without sound, without urgency, only presence, a quiet return of warmth and light that touches everything at once, yet never feels overwhelming, only steady and familiar, as if it has always been expected. The river responds first in reflection, catching the new sunlight in broken, shimmering patterns that stretch across its surface, shifting with every small movement of water, turning the Nile into a flowing path of gold and pale brightness. The reeds along the bank become fully visible now, standing tall and still for a moment, their forms outlined clearly in the morning light before the breeze gently begins to move them again. In the village, the transition becomes more noticeable. Doors open more fully now. People begin to rise from sleep in a natural and unhurried way. There is no sudden awakening, only a slow and peaceful return to the day, as if each person is following the same quiet rhythm that the land itself has just passed through. Inside the homes, the darkness of night has fully lifted.
Soft morning light enters through doorways and small openings, filling the rooms with pale gold and gentle blue, revealing familiar spaces that feel both rested and renewed. A person sits up from their sleeping mat, pausing for a moment before moving, allowing the body to fully return from rest, breathing slowly as they take in the quiet presence of morning. Nearby, another begins to gather simple belongings, moving with calm, steady motions, as if nothing is rushed, as if the day has already agreed to move at a gentle pace. Outside, the sounds of the village return gradually, not loudly, not suddenly, but in soft layers, a distant voice, the light step of feet on packed earth, the gentle movement of water being drawn from the river once more. The Nile continues its steady flow beside all of this, unchanged in its rhythm, carrying the reflection of the new day across its surface, where light and movement blend together in a calm and continuous stream. The desert beyond the river begins to glow again, its vast surface now touched fully by morning light, revealing its endless quiet expanse, still and unmoving, yet no longer hidden in shadow. The sky above becomes brighter and clearer, stretching wide and open, holding the sun as it rises a little higher, marking the beginning of another full day along the Nile. Birds begin to call more frequently now, their voices soft but present, weaving into the gentle sounds of waking life across the village and fields. In the fields, movement slowly returns once more, as people step out again into the familiar work of the land, their actions calm and steady, their presence blending naturally into the returning rhythm of the day. Nothing feels rushed, nothing feels broken. Everything continues as it always has, flowing forward in the same quiet pattern of life shaped by the river, the land, and the sky above. And as the sun rises higher into the morning sky, the world of ancient Egypt fully awakens once again, not with noise or urgency, but with calm continuity, where night has passed, day has returned, and everything moves gently forward in the endless, peaceful rhythm of the Nile.
The morning grows steadily brighter now, but it does not feel harsh or fast, only calm and wide, as the sun lifts higher into the sky and spreads its gentle warmth across the land in slow, even waves. The village is fully awake once more, yet it does not feel loud or hurried, only quietly active, as if every movement is guided by an old and familiar rhythm that has never needed to be spoken. Along the Nile, the water reflects the morning light in soft layers of gold and pale blue, shifting constantly but gently, as if the river is carrying both the memory of night and the beginning of day at the same time. Small boats move again near the banks, not quickly, but in steady and controlled motion, their presence blending into the larger flow of the river, where everything feels connected and continuous. On the riverbank, people gather in simple groups, some standing still for a moment, others moving slowly between tasks, their actions calm and unhurried, shaped by routine rather than urgency. Water is drawn again from the river, poured into clay vessels with careful hands, each movement smooth and practiced, leaving behind only small ripples that fade quickly into the larger flow. The reeds sway gently in the growing breeze, now more active than at dawn, but still soft and steady, brushing against one another in a quiet rhythm that never feels disruptive. Farther out, the fields are already alive with motion once more, though it is a calm kind of motion, where people move across the land in spaced and balanced patterns, tending to crops, guiding water, and continuing the steady care that defines each day. The soil holds the warmth of the morning sun, soft beneath careful steps, receiving each movement without resistance, as if it understands the rhythm of human work and responds in kind. A man bends slowly at the edge of a field, checking the flow of water through a narrow channel, adjusting it slightly with his hands, then pausing to observe how it moves before continuing. Nearby, another worker walks a slow path between rows, looking over the plants, their green leaves catching the sunlight in quiet flashes as the wind moves through them. There is no rush, only presence, only continuation. In the village, daily life unfolds in simple patterns once again. Food is prepared in small homes, the smell of bread and grain drifting softly through open doorways, mixing with the scent of earth and water that always seems to belong to this place. People move between home and river, between rest and work, between shade and light, each step part of a larger rhythm that feels both natural and unbroken. Children move more freely now, their voices slightly more present than before, yet still gentle, still woven into the background of the morning rather than rising above it. The sky above remains clear and wide, holding the sun in a steady position as it continues its slow climb, marking the passage of time without pressure or urgency. The desert beyond the Nile is fully awake in light now, its vast surface glowing softly under the sun, still silent, still unchanged, but fully revealed once again after the quiet of night. The river remains the center of it all, flowing steadily through every moment, reflecting sky, land, and movement in one continuous and gentle presence that never breaks its rhythm. And as the morning deepens further into the day, everything continues in this quiet and steady flow, where life moves like water, time moves like light, and the world of ancient Egypt remains calm, familiar, and endlessly connected beneath the wide and peaceful sky.
The sun has now climbed higher into the sky, and the light it casts across the land has grown fuller, steadier, and warmer, spreading evenly over the Nile Valley in a way that feels constant and unbroken, as if the entire world is gently resting inside its glow. The morning is no longer new, yet it still carries a softness in its movement, a calm sense of continuation that never feels rushed or sharply divided, only slowly unfolding as time moves forward in quiet steps. Along the river, the Nile continues its endless flow, reflecting the higher sun in bright, shifting patterns that ripple across its surface, never holding a single shape for long, always changing, always moving, yet never disturbed. Small boats move with steady purpose now, their paths familiar, their motion smooth and controlled, guided by hands that understand the river as something living, something constant, something that does not need to be forced. On the banks, activity continues in calm patterns, with people moving between water and village, between shade and sunlight, their steps measured and unhurried, their presence blending into the steady rhythm of the day. Water is carried again in clay jars, the coolness of the river briefly held before being brought into homes, where it will serve the simple needs of daily life. Each movement feels familiar, each task feels repeated, and yet nothing feels tiring in its repetition, only steady, like breathing, like the river itself. In the fields, the work of the land continues under the higher sun, though it remains calm and structured, never chaotic, never hurried, only a steady continuation of care and attention. Hands move through soil with practiced ease. Water channels are checked and adjusted in small, careful ways. Plants are tended to with quiet focus, their leaves shifting gently in the breeze as light and wind pass over them. The desert beyond the fields remains vast and silent, its bright surface now fully exposed under the sun, glowing with a pale, steady light that stretches endlessly into the distance. It does not change, it does not respond, it simply remains, holding its quiet presence beyond the rhythm of life along the river. Back in the village, the homes feel warmer now as sunlight filters more fully through open doorways and simple openings, creating soft patterns of light and shade across walls and floors. People move within these spaces in calm and familiar ways, preparing food, resting briefly, speaking in low voices that carry gently through the air before fading into silence again. Children play quietly in small groups or sit near shaded areas, their movements gentle, their voices soft, never breaking the calm atmosphere that surrounds them. The breeze moves lightly through the village, passing between homes and open paths, carrying with it the scent of water, earth, and baked bread, blending everything into a single familiar presence that feels deeply tied to the land itself. The Nile remains at the center of everything, steady and constant, reflecting sky, movement, and light in a continuous flow that never pauses, never breaks, always holding the rhythm of life within its surface. The reeds along its edge sway slowly, responding to the passing air, their motion soft and rhythmic, like a quiet echo of the river's own movement. Above it all, the sky remains wide and open, holding the sun in its steady position as the day continues forward without interruption. And as late morning deepens further, the world of ancient Egypt continues its calm and unbroken rhythm, where every action is part of something larger, every moment flows into the next, and life moves gently onward beneath the endless and peaceful sky. The late morning begins to soften as the sun continues its slow rise toward its highest point, spreading a broader and warmer light across the land, filling the Nile Valley with a steady brightness that feels both calm and complete. The air grows warmer now, not suddenly, but in a gradual and familiar way, as if the day itself is slowly exhaling heat into the world, allowing everything beneath it to settle into a quieter pace. Along the Nile, the water continues its endless movement, reflecting the stronger sunlight in shimmering patterns that break and reform with every ripple, carrying light across its surface like a moving sheet of gold and pale brightness. The river remains calm, never changing its rhythm, always steady, always present, as if it holds the entire day together through its quiet and constant flow. Small boats continue their movement, though their pace has begun to slow slightly as the growing warmth encourages a more measured rhythm across the water. On the banks, people move in simple patterns of work and rest, their actions balanced between effort and pause, between movement and stillness, always returning to calm after each task. Water is still drawn, fields are still tended, and paths between village and river remain active, but everything now carries a softer weight, as if the land itself is beginning to ease into the warmer part of the day. In the fields, the soil feels warmer beneath the sun, holding heat gently but steadily, while plants sway lightly in the breeze that continues to pass through in slow, even waves. Workers move with quiet familiarity, adjusting water channels, checking the land, and continuing the careful patterns of daily care that have shaped life here for generations. There is no urgency in their motion, only continuity, only flow. The desert beyond the river becomes brighter under the higher sun, its surface glowing softly with pale light that stretches across its vast emptiness, revealing dunes and open space without breaking its deep and constant silence. It remains unchanged, still, endless, a quiet contrast to the steady life along the Nile. Back in the village, the homes grow slightly warmer as the sun rises higher. Those shaded areas remain cool and comfortable, offering small spaces of rest where people pause during the slow unfolding of the day. Inside, simple tasks continue, preparing food, arranging tools, resting between moments of movement, all done in a calm and familiar rhythm that feels deeply woven into daily life. The sound of the village remains soft and steady. Occasional voices, gentle movement, the quiet rhythm of water, footsteps, and wind passing through open spaces. Children remain near shaded areas or inside the village boundaries, their energy still present but softened by the warmth of the growing day, their voices blending gently into the background rather than standing apart from it. The breeze continues to move across the land, though it is now warmer, carrying the scent of earth, grain, and river water through the village in slow and steady currents. The reeds along the Nile sway more gently now, their motion less frequent, as if responding to the slower rhythm of midday approaching in the distance. The river itself remains unchanged in its presence, always flowing, always steady, reflecting sky and land in a continuous and unbroken mirror of movement and light. Above, the sun continues its slow climb, holding the sky in a wide and steady brightness that signals the approach of midday without any sudden shift or interruption. And as the warmth of late morning continues to deepen, the world of ancient Egypt moves forward in its quiet and natural rhythm, where every motion remains gentle, every sound remains soft, and life continues to unfold beneath the endless calm of the sky. The sun now stands high above the land, holding its place in a wide and steady sky, where light spreads evenly across the Nile Valley, filling every space with a warm and constant brightness that feels both complete and unchanging. The late morning has now fully given way to midday, and with it comes a gradual slowing, not of life itself, but of its movement, as everything begins to soften again under the weight of the growing warmth. The air becomes stiller, heavier in feeling, though never uncomfortable, just steady, just calm. Along the Nile, the water continues its endless journey, reflecting the strong overhead light in bright, shifting patterns that ripple and dissolve with every movement of the current. The river does not pause. It does not change its rhythm. It simply continues, carrying the day forward in its quiet and constant flow. Boats along the river move less frequently now, some resting near the banks, others drifting slowly without urgency, their motions softened by the heat of the day. On the riverbanks, people begin to slow their activity, stepping more often into shaded areas, resting between tasks, or simply standing still for a moment, allowing the warmth of the day to pass over them without resistance. In the fields, movement continues, but it is less active now, more spaced, more deliberate, as if every action has been gently stretched into a slower rhythm by the sun above. Hands still tend the soil. Water still flows through narrow channels, but each motion is measured, calm, and unhurried. The earth holds the warmth of the sun more deeply now, soft beneath footsteps, steady under the care of those who continue their quiet work. The desert beyond the river glows under the full strength of the midday sun, its vast surface bright and still, revealing long, soft contours of sand that stretch endlessly into the distance. It remains silent, unmoving, a world of stillness that mirrors the growing calm of the midday hour. Back in the village, the homes offer shelter from the strongest light, their interiors cooler and shaded, where people pause, rest, and move more slowly within the softer spaces of daily life. Inside, activity continues in quiet form, preparing food, tending to simple needs, resting in between small tasks, all carried out with a sense of ease that matches the rhythm of the day. The sounds of the village are reduced now to a gentle background presence. Soft voices, occasional movement, the faint rhythm of daily life continuing without interruption. Children grow quieter again, their energy settling into calmer forms as they rest or sit in shaded areas, observing the stillness of midday with quiet attention. The breeze becomes lighter now, passing gently through the village and across the river, offering brief moments of relief from the steady warmth of the sun before fading again into stillness. The reeds along the Nile stand nearly motionless, their movement reduced to the smallest shifts, as if even the wind has chosen to slow during this central hour of the day. The river remains the only constant motion, steady and unbroken, reflecting the sky in bright shifting tones that carry the light of midday across its surface without end. Above, the sun holds its highest position, marking the center of the day with a steady and unwavering presence. And as midday settles fully over the land, the world of ancient Egypt once again enters a quiet balance of warmth and stillness, where movement slows, sound softens, and life continues in a calm and steady rhythm beneath the wide and endless sky. The sun remains high, but something subtle begins to shift in its presence, as if the strongest point of the day has already passed without notice, and now the light begins its long and gentle journey downward again. The brightness is still full across the land, still steady and wide, but it no longer feels like it is rising. Instead, it feels suspended, held in place for a little while longer before it begins to soften into the next part of the day. Across the Nile Valley, the air carries the same warm stillness of midday, yet there is a faint easing within it, a quiet suggestion that time is continuing forward, even if the light remains unchanged to the eye. The river flows on, unchanged in rhythm, steady and endless, carrying reflections of the sky that shimmer and shift with every small movement across its surface. The brightness on the water is still strong, but now it carries slightly longer patterns, as if the light is beginning to stretch differently across the current. On the riverbanks, activity continues in calm and familiar ways, though movement is slower now, more measured, as people adjust naturally to the deeper warmth of the day. Some remain in shaded places, resting quietly between tasks, their presence still and calm, as if listening to the rhythm of the land itself. Others continue working near the water, their actions steady but softened, never rushed, never forced, always returning to stillness between moments of motion. In the fields, the work continues in a quiet and enduring pattern, though the heat encourages a slower rhythm now, where every step and every movement is balanced carefully with rest. Hands move through soil in patient repetition. Water is guided gently through channels that glisten under the sun. Plants sway lightly, their leaves shifting in the faint breeze that still passes through, though less frequently than before. The desert beyond the river remains fully exposed under the strong light, its surface glowing with pale intensity, stretching endlessly into the distance without sound or change. It holds the same silent presence it has carried throughout the day, unchanged and vast, offering a quiet contrast to the slow rhythm of life along the Nile. Back in the village, the homes feel like soft shelters from the steady heat outside, their shaded interiors offering relief where people rest, prepare simple meals, or sit quietly in moments of pause. The light that enters these spaces is softer now, filtered through openings and doorways, forming gentle shapes that move slowly across walls and floors as the day continues. The sounds of the village remain low and steady, not silence, but calm presence. Occasional footsteps, a quiet exchange of words, the faint movement of daily life continuing without interruption. Children remain mostly within shaded areas, their energy calmer now, their voices quieter, blending gently into the background of the village rather than rising above it. The breeze moves lightly across the land, carrying warmth instead of coolness now, but still offering movement through the still air, passing over fields, river, and homes in slow and steady waves. The reeds along the Nile respond with faint motion, barely noticeable, as if the entire landscape is resting within the same slow rhythm of midday easing into afternoon. The river remains the heart of it all, constant, steady, unbroken, reflecting sky, light, and time in a continuous flow that never pauses, never changes, always moving forward with quiet certainty. Above, the sun begins its slow shift, imperceptible at first, but present in the way shadows grow just slightly longer, in the way the light softens at its edges, in the way the world feels gently stretched between stillness and motion. And as this quiet transition continues, the land of ancient Egypt remains in its calm and steady rhythm, where midday does not end suddenly, but slowly transforms into afternoon, carrying everything forward in a peaceful and unbroken flow beneath the endless sky.
The sun continues its long, steady path across the sky, and although it still stands high and strong, there is now a subtle change in the way its light touches the land, as if the day has reached a quiet turning point that cannot be seen directly, but can be felt in everything it touches. The brightness remains wide and full over the Nile Valley, yet it no longer feels like it is climbing upward. Instead, it feels as if it is gently holding itself in place, resting for a long moment before it begins its slow descent toward the far side of the horizon later in the day. Across the river, the Nile continues its endless movement, flowing as it always has, calm and patient, carrying the reflection of the sky in a soft, shifting surface that never settles into one shape for long. The light on the water is still strong, but it now stretches more loosely, forming longer and softer patterns that drift and break apart with every gentle ripple, as if the river is slowly learning the shape of the afternoon. Along the riverbanks, life continues in its steady rhythm, though everything now feels slightly more measured, slightly more spaced, as if the world itself has chosen to move with greater care under the growing warmth. People walk in familiar paths between shade and sunlight, pausing more often beneath trees or simple coverings, allowing the heat of the day to pass over them in quiet waves before returning again to their tasks. Some sit near the water, resting with their feet close to the edge, watching the river move without urgency, their bodies still, their breathing slow, their presence blending gently into the calm of the afternoon. In the fields, the work continues, but it has taken on a deeper slowness now, as the sun's strength begins to settle into the earth. The soil feels warmer beneath every step,
holding the heat gently, not sharply, as plants sway lightly in the faint breeze that still moves through the rows in slow, uneven patterns. Hands continue to guide water through narrow channels, adjusting small flows with careful movements, watching as it spreads across the land in quiet, glistening lines that disappear into the soil. Each action is familiar, each movement is repeated, and yet nothing feels rushed or heavy. Everything feels part of something larger and continuous, like a rhythm that has always been present and will continue long after this moment has passed. Far beyond the fields, the desert stretches endlessly under the strong afternoon light, its surface glowing in pale gold and soft beige tones, revealing gentle curves and distant lines of dunes that seem to shift only in appearance as the light changes, not in form. It remains silent, still, unmoving, a vast, quiet presence that holds its own kind of time, separate from the flowing life along the river. Back in the village, the homes feel cooler in comparison to the open land, their shaded interiors offering relief where people rest between small tasks, sit quietly in thought, or prepare simple food that carries the familiar warmth of daily life. Inside these spaces, light filters through doorways and small openings in soft angles, creating slow-moving patterns across the walls and floors that shift gently as the sun continues its slow journey across the sky. The sound of the village remains low and steady, never rising, never breaking the calm atmosphere that holds everything together. A quiet exchange of words between neighbors, the soft movement of tools being set down, the faint sound of water being poured into clay vessels, all of it blending into a gentle background rhythm that feels both present and distant at the same time. Children remain in shaded spaces or near the edges of homes, their energy calmer now, their movements slower, their voices soft and spaced, as if even they are drawn into the quiet rhythm of the afternoon. The breeze continues to pass through the land, warm but steady, moving across fields, river, and village in slow waves that carry the scent of earth, water, and grain through the open air. The reeds along the Nile sway only lightly now, their movements small and subtle, as if even they are conserving energy under the steady presence of the sun. The river remains unchanged in its constant flow, carrying reflections of sky and land in an endless, quiet motion that ties everything together, never stopping, never rushing, always present. Above, the sun begins its barely noticeable shift downward, not enough to be clearly seen, but enough to be felt in the lengthening of shadows and the softening of light at its edges. And as this early afternoon deepens slowly across the land, the world of ancient Egypt continues in its calm and unbroken rhythm, where time does not feel divided into sharp moments, but instead flows gently forward like the river itself, steady, quiet, and endlessly peaceful beneath the wide and open sky.
The light of the sun begins to change in a way that is still subtle, yet now more noticeable, as if the afternoon has quietly crossed an invisible line and is slowly beginning its long descent toward evening. The brightness over the land remains strong, but it no longer feels fixed in its highest place. Instead, it begins to soften at the edges, spreading across the fields and river in longer, warmer tones that stretch further than before, reaching into places that were once filled with sharper light. Across the Nile, the water reflects this change with quiet clarity. The surface is still steady and constant, but the patterns of light upon it now move in longer, more fluid shapes,
drifting with the current in a slower rhythm that feels deeply connected to the turning of the day. The river does not change its pace, it never does, but the way it carries light now feels different, as if it is gently holding the afternoon in its flow and slowly guiding it toward evening. Along the riverbanks, life continues in its steady rhythm, though the heat has softened slightly compared to midday, allowing movement to feel more comfortable, more open, more natural again. People walk in small groups or alone along familiar paths, their steps unhurried, their presence calm, as they move between water, village, and fields in the same quiet patterns that shape each day. Some pause beneath trees or shaded structures, resting for longer moments now, watching the river or simply sitting in stillness, allowing the afternoon to pass over them without resistance. In the fields, the work continues, but there is a sense now that the day is gradually moving toward completion. Water channels are checked with care, adjusted where needed, then left to flow on their own once more. Plants stand in steady rows, their leaves catching the changing light, no longer under the direct strength of midday, but under a softer, more angled glow that brings out deeper tones of green and gold. Every movement in the field feels measured. Every task feels part of a long, continuous rhythm that stretches beyond any single moment. Far beyond the cultivated land, the desert begins to show more definition again as the sun lowers slightly, casting longer shadows across its vast surface. The dunes, once bright and almost flat under the strongest light, now reveal gentle curves and soft contours that stretch endlessly into the distance, creating a quiet sense of depth within the silence. It remains unchanged in motion, still, endless, a world of quiet contrast to the steady living rhythm along the Nile. Back in the village, the homes grow warmer in tone as the light angles lower through doorways and openings, filling interior spaces with a softer, more golden glow that moves slowly across walls and floors as the afternoon continues. Inside, daily life carries on in calm and familiar ways. Simple tasks are completed, food is prepared, water is stored. People rest between movements, sitting in shaded corners or near doorways where the air feels slightly cooler and more comfortable. The sounds of the village remain low and gentle, forming a continuous background presence that never dominates the atmosphere. A quiet voice speaking from one home to another, the soft movement of clay vessels being placed on the ground, the faint rustle of fabric as someone shifts in place, all of it blending into a steady, peaceful rhythm that feels deeply rooted in the land itself. Children continue to move in small, quiet ways, their energy softened by the warmth of the afternoon, their voices gentle and spaced, never rising above the calm that surrounds them. The breeze moves steadily now, carrying warmth through the air, passing over the river, fields, and village in slow, even waves that gently brush against everything without disturbing it. The reeds along the Nile sway lightly once more, their motion small but steady, responding to the subtle change in light and air as the afternoon continues its slow descent. The river remains the center of all things, flowing without pause, reflecting sky, land, and time in one continuous, unbroken movement that connects every part of the landscape. Above, the sun continues its slow and steady shift downward, marking the passage from early afternoon into late afternoon, without any sudden change, only a gradual deepening of light and lengthening of shadow. And as this transition unfolds across the land, the world of ancient Egypt moves with it in perfect calm, where nothing is rushed, nothing is broken, and everything continues forward in a quiet and endless rhythm beneath the wide and peaceful sky.
The sun now sits lower in the sky than before, though it is still bright and steady, casting a wider and warmer light that stretches across the Nile Valley in long, golden paths that slowly shift as time moves forward without sound or urgency. The feeling of the day changes again, not sharply, but in a soft and gradual way, as if the afternoon has gently begun to release its hold on the world, allowing everything beneath it to move closer to evening. Across the river, the Nile reflects this shift in a deeper and more textured way, where the surface no longer holds only bright light, but now carries a blend of gold, amber, and soft shadow that moves endlessly with the current. The river does not change its rhythm. It never does, but the light upon it now feels richer, slower, as if it is stretching itself across the water in preparation for the approaching end of the day. Along the riverbanks, movement continues in calm and familiar patterns, though everything now feels slightly more unhurried, as if the world is naturally easing into a quieter state. People walk along paths that are now marked by longer shadows, their steps steady and relaxed, their presence blending gently into the softened light of late afternoon. Some pause more frequently now, standing still for longer moments near the water or under the shade of trees, watching the river flow as the day slowly shifts around them. In the fields, the work continues, but there is a quiet sense of nearing completion. Water channels are checked one final time, tools are lifted, used, and then set aside more often. The movements of the workers are steady but increasingly spaced, as if each task is being gently placed into its natural ending point for the day. The soil holds the warmth of the sun more deeply now, softened by hours of light, while plants sway gently under a breeze that moves more consistently through the valley, carrying the scent of earth, grain, and water. Far beyond the fields, the desert begins to shift again under the changing angle of light, its vast surface now filled with longer shadows that stretch across dunes and open spaces, revealing depth and shape that were less visible earlier in the day. It remains silent, endless, unmoving, a steady presence that mirrors the calm rhythm of everything along the river. Back in the village, the homes begin to feel the approach of evening in subtle ways, as the light inside grows warmer and more angled, entering through doorways in long, soft beams that slowly move across interior walls and floors. People begin to complete their daily tasks. Food is gathered, water containers are filled, simple tools are placed aside in familiar locations, each action carried out without haste, as if everything is being gently guided toward closure. The sounds of the village remain soft and steady, but they now feel slightly more spaced, with longer pauses between movements and voices, as if even sound is beginning to slow with the approaching evening. Children grow quieter again, their movements less frequent, their energy settling into calm observation or rest near shaded areas, blending into the softening rhythm of the village. The breeze continues to pass through the land, now cooler than earlier in the afternoon, bringing a gentle contrast to the lingering warmth of the sun as it moves lower in the sky.
The reeds along the Nile respond with a slightly more visible motion, swaying gently in the steady air, their forms outlined more clearly as the shadows around them lengthen. The river remains constant, flowing without interruption, carrying the entire rhythm of the day within its surface as it reflects the changing sky above. And as late afternoon continues to deepen into the early stages of evening, the world of ancient Egypt moves forward in its slow and natural rhythm, where every motion becomes softer, every shadow becomes longer, and every moment gently prepares for the quiet return of night beneath the wide and endless sky.
The light of the sun now takes on a deeper and softer quality as it moves lower toward the horizon, spreading across the land in long, warm streams that seem to slow everything they touch, not by force, but by gentle presence alone. The day is no longer in its height, it is in its quiet descent, and that descent feels smooth, almost unnoticeable at first, as if time itself is simply becoming heavier and more calm as it moves toward evening. Across the Nile, the water now reflects this change with greater depth, where the surface holds layers of gold, amber, and faint copper tones that shift and dissolve slowly with the current, never fixed, always moving, always changing in the same quiet rhythm. The river remains steady, it always has, but now it feels like it is carrying the evening forward, gently guiding the last light of the day across its surface as it flows. Along the riverbanks, movement becomes more spaced and unhurried. People begin to finish what they have been doing, not suddenly, but in a natural winding down, as if every task has found its place and is now gently coming to rest. Some stand quietly near the water, watching the reflection of the lowering sun stretch across the river in long, shimmering paths that fade and return with every ripple. Others walk slowly back toward the village, their steps relaxed, their bodies no longer carrying the intensity of midday work, but the softer ease of approaching evening. In the fields, the work of the day begins to reach its natural close. Water channels are left to flow on their own. Tools are gathered and carried back in calm, steady motions. The final checks of plants and soil are made with slow attention, as if saying a quiet farewell to the day's labor. Nothing feels rushed, nothing feels unfinished, everything feels gently complete. The desert beyond the river takes on a more dramatic presence in this light, as the low sun casts long shadows across its dunes and open spaces, revealing soft curves and layered textures that seem to stretch endlessly into the distance. It remains silent, still, immense, a vast, quiet world that stands apart, yet always beside the life of the river. Back in the village, the homes are now filled with a warm, golden glow as the sunlight enters at a lower angle, passing through doorways and openings in long, slow-moving bands that drift across walls and floors. People begin to settle more fully into evening routines. Food is prepared in calm, familiar ways. Water is stored for the night. Simple tools and daily items are placed in their usual spaces, each movement part of a rhythm that feels deeply known and repeated across countless days. The sounds of the village remain soft, but now they are fewer, more spaced, longer pauses between them, as if even the presence of sound is beginning to rest. Children move less now, gathering near homes or sitting quietly, their energy softened by the long day, their voices gentle and low,
blending into the overall calm that fills the village. The breeze shifts again, now cooler and more noticeable, passing through the valley with a steady and comforting flow, moving over fields, river, and homes as the sun continues its slow descent. The reeds along the Nile sway gently, their motion more visible in the longer shadows, their forms bending and returning in a quiet rhythm that matches the river beside them. And the river continues, as always, unchanged in its endless movement, reflecting sky and light in a continuous flow that ties every part of the landscape together. Above, the sun now sits close to the horizon, and the sky begins to deepen in color, though still holding the warmth of day, as if the entire world is resting in the final breath of afternoon before the arrival of evening. And so the land of ancient Egypt moves gently forward into the closing moments of daylight, where everything becomes softer, slower, and more peaceful, as the day prepares quietly for its end beneath the wide and endless sky.
The sun now reaches the very edge of the horizon, where the land and sky meet in a quiet and endless line, and it begins its final descent in the same slow and peaceful way it has moved across the entire day. There is no sudden ending, no sharp change, only a gradual softening of light, as if the world itself is slowly lowering its voice, preparing to rest once more. The sky deepens into rich tones of gold and amber, spreading outward in wide and gentle layers that fade softly into warm orange and then into the earliest hints of evening blue above. Across the Nile, the water holds this final light with quiet beauty, reflecting the sunset in long, shimmering paths that stretch and break with every movement of the current, as if the river is carrying the last moments of the day forward in its endless flow. The surface glows briefly, then softens again, never holding still, always changing, always calm. Along the riverbanks, everything begins to settle. Movement slows. Voices become fewer. People pause more often, standing still for longer moments as they look across the water and watch the sun's final light fade into the horizon. There is a quiet understanding in this moment. The day has reached its end, not suddenly, but completely. In the fields, the final work is done. Tools are carried away in slow, familiar motions. Water channels are left to continue their gentle flow into the earth, unattended but steady, as if the land itself now takes responsibility for the work of the day. Workers walk back toward the village in calm groups or alone, their steps unhurried, their bodies relaxed, carrying the quiet satisfaction of a day that has passed in its natural rhythm. The desert beyond the river glows one last time under the low sun, its vast surface lit in soft gold and deep shadow, revealing its endless silence before it slowly begins to fade into dusk. It remains unchanged, immense, still, a world that watches the day end without ever moving. Back in the village, the first lamps begin to appear again. Small flames are lit inside homes, one by one, softly breaking through the growing twilight with warm, steady light that feels gentle and familiar. The glow spreads slowly across doorways and windows, forming scattered points of warmth that begin to hold the village together as daylight fades. Inside the homes, people settle into evening. Food is shared. Simple conversations are spoken in low and calm voices. Movements are slower now, more deliberate, as the body naturally shifts from the activity of the day into the stillness of night. Children grow quieter, their energy softened completely by the long rhythm of the day, resting near family,
or lying down in calm, familiar spaces. The breeze passes through once more, now cool and steady, moving across the river, through the fields and between the homes, carrying the final warmth of the day away into the evening air. The reeds along the Nile sway gently in the fading light, their motion soft and almost silent, as the river beside them continues its endless flow, now reflecting both the last light of sunset and the first hints of night. Above, the sun finally slips below the horizon, not in a moment of force, but in a quiet disappearance, as if it is gently closing the day and setting it down behind the world. And as the light fades completely, the sky begins its return to night. Stars will come again, lamps will glow more fully, the river will continue, and the land of ancient Egypt will once again rest beneath the wide, calm darkness of evening, not ending, only continuing, as it always has, as it always will.